Good evening, everybody. Please be seated. All right, welcome to the regular meeting of council for Monday, June the 12th, 2017, 7 p.m. City Hall Council Chambers. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item is to recognize that we are on the unceded territory of the Hupetchisitt and the Sashot First Nation. Councilors, any late items? City Clerk, any late items? Then a motion to approve the agenda would be in order.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried. And we do actually have Councillor Shari Minions with us this evening, but she's here electronically. She's here right on my right-hand side. Welcome, Councillor Minions.
Welcome.
We can, I think we can hear you. Council, we have minutes of the special meeting held at 2 p.m. and the regular council meeting held at 7 p.m. on May 23rd. A motion to adopt those minutes would be in order.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. Thank you. Council, it brings us then to Part C, the public input period. It's an opportunity for the public to address council on topics of relevance to City Council. A maximum of 4 speakers for no more than 3 minutes each will be accommodated. Anybody wish to address council? Seeing nobody jumping up, then we will move on to our delegations. Council, our first delegation is from R. Anderson and Associates, our chartered accountants. And they're here to present the audited financial statements for the year 2016. Mr. Anderson, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Good evening. I'd like to direct your attention to our auditor's report. Manager's responsibility for the consolidated financial statements. So management's responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of these consolidated financial statements in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards, and for such internal control as management determines is necessary to enable the preparation of consolidated financial statements that are free of material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. Our responsibility is to express an opinion on these financial statements based on our audit. We conducted our audit in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards, and those standards require that we comply with ethical requirements and plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the consolidated financial statements are free of material misstatement. We believe that the audit evidence we've obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our audit opinion. In our opinion, the consolidated financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the City of Port Alberni as of December 31st, 2016, and the results of its operations and its cash flows for the year end in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So I'll quickly touch on the financial statements and some highlights. If anybody has questions after each statement, please feel free to ask. So our first statement is our statement of financial position, Statement A. So at the end of December 31st, 2016, we had financial assets of $35 million versus $33 million in the prior year. Liabilities consisted of $19.3 million versus $20.5 million in the prior year. So we have overall net financial assets of just over $16 million versus $13.4 million in the prior year. Our non-financial assets totaled $107,167,000 versus $106,561, giving us an accumulated surplus of $123 million versus $120 million in the prior year. And what your accumulated surplus represents is basically the primary indicator of the financial resources the city has available for future services. So it's all of the city's assets, financial and non-financial, that exceed all its liabilities. So moving on to the consolidated statement of operations, Statement B. Overall revenues were just over $40 million versus $37.3 million in the prior year. The bulk of that increase of just over $3.6 million was in your grants, which is detailed in Note 11. It was basically a grant for $1.9 million from the General Strategic Priorities Fund, as well as the Building Canada Fund for $1.8 million. Expenses were fairly consistent, 37 versus 33. We had some expenses that were a bit higher in the current year due to police and fire protection under protective services, as well as increased costs in the city manager's office. But overall, the annual surplus was $3.1 million versus $4 million the prior year, and it was pretty close to being on what was budgeted for the 2016 year. So we take our ending annual surplus, add the beginning surplus of $120 million, and you'll see our accumulated surplus of $123, which matches our balance sheet. The next couple of statements, the statement of changes in net assets, statement C. That's just basically a summary of all your changes in your net assets, financial and non-financial. So we had an increase of net financial assets of $2.5 million versus actually a loss last year of $341, or a decrease, pardon me. So we end up at net financial assets of $16 million, which we just talked about on the prior balance sheet. Over to our consolidated statement of cash flows. We've had an increase in cash of $1.4 million in cash flow versus a $1.3 million decrease in the prior year. A lot of that had to do with adding back some of the amortization, your non-cash working capital. We had repayment of long-term debt, some acquisition of tangible capital assets, some sale of assets, mainly land, during the year. So overall, like I said, we have $1.4 million increase in cash flow. So I'll conclude with that. I won't go into the notes. Anybody has any questions?
I do actually have a question, and one is the increase in surplus from 2015 to 2016 of 2.5%. Is that more or less consistent with what you would expect? Or
yes,
is that
based on your budgets and stuff like that I've seen, you had a really big jump in your revenue, so that really contributed to that increase. So yes, it would be. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Council? All right, then Councillor Washington, you want to move receipt of that report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the auditor's report in regard to the 2016 audited financial statement be received.
Your seconder?
Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried.
In favor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Council, our next delegation is Marcy DeWitt from the Alberni Clayoquot Health Network. She's here to seek endorsement on the Working Together to Reduce Poverty protocol. Marcy, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight, Mayor and Council. Happy to come speak with you tonight on the Working Together to Reduce Poverty in the ACRD. So what I want to do for you tonight is do a very quick overview of what we've been working on and the process that we've been undertaking with our local communities before getting on to the endorsement that we're seeking tonight. So for most of you know, the work that we're doing with the Alberni Clayoquot Health Network, it is a multidisciplinary network that is aiming to address complex issues in the Alberni Clayoquot region, looking at ways that we can pull together the various resources in our communities and the partners to look at different ways of doing business within local organizations, municipalities, and for-profit businesses. So one of the things that has really come to light recently in the work that we've been doing is that poverty reduction is one of the kind of linchpins of creating healthy communities. In order to address any sort of health inequities, having a good and realistic plan to address poverty in our communities is the basis of creating some healthy outcomes. So in November 2015, we worked together with the MLA's office to pull together a small community gathering to start initiating conversations around poverty in our region. From that point, we've worked with local decision makers, local community members, bringing together a couple different opportunities to further engage and create or gather some input. So in May 2016, we pulled together a larger workshop and were able to create what's called a theory of change out of this. So working with the community to identify specific outcomes that could, in fact, assist us in reducing poverty in the region, as well as some generated activities. Since that time, we've been working with local organizations to kind of fill in additional information around that framework, and then presenting that back to local decision makers, the MLA and MP, in order to gain feedback in terms of next steps. From this, we have seen quite a lot of uptake from our local decision makers, and have gone forward with kind of two streams in which we're taking action. One being with organizations and communities, where we're working with this theory of change, moving forward the outcomes and activities, looking at further action planning and implementation around programming that can, in fact, assist to reduce poverty in our region. The other is on the political realm. So we had a suggestion from the MLA, MP, and decision makers present this winter in a meeting and presentation that we did to pull together a poverty protocol. That was signed by the MLA and MP on April 2nd. And so before we go any further, in terms of the poverty protocol, I just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of the theory of change that was developed in order to assist in organizing community members and better connecting the various initiatives that are happening in our region. So a theory of change is a tool that we use that's similar to a logic model. It's used for planning and tracking. It's used to document complex issues. So to really look at both the qualitative and the quantitative analysis of the ways that our actions impact these various outcome areas. So it sounds a little bit complex, and it's meant to measure complex situations. It's a little bit tricky at this point without the actual description and picture of the theory of change that we have. But what it is not is it is not prescriptive. It's not meant to be set in stone. It's not meant to be the only way forward. It's not time limited, so we're looking at change over a long period of time. We're recognizing that poverty reduction is a long-term process, and it's not owned by any one organization. So we've found that it was really important to bring this framework and this work outside of one organization, one community, or out of the political realm as well. So this is a good visual of our theory of change. From the May 30th workshop, 5 outcomes were identified. This was done by 50 representatives from throughout the region. And we had 4 precondition activity areas. The outcomes identified were around housing, decreasing the number of hungry children, increasing the awareness of poverty issues and impacts in the ACRD, so very much an education portion, addressing mental health and addictions, the continuity and follow-up of these services, and addressing youth homelessness. So within those 5 outcome areas, there were specific themes in terms of the activities that the individuals that were involved in this workshop identified. They really put a big emphasis on service integration and collaboration, so organizations and communities coming together to work better around these areas. Program level interventions, so increase in programs and or creation of new programs. Policy level interactions, as well as education. And education stemmed or started everywhere from the most basic food security education in schools, all the way up to education around the awareness of poverty and what it looks like in our communities. So in terms of the Alberni Clayoquot Health Network, we've committed to moving forward this framework. So familiarizing stakeholders with the theory of change and its concepts, engaging the experts in our communities. So hosting any number of community engagement opportunities in order to further refine this framework, action plan around the identified outcomes, measure what's happening, and continue to work with this as we move forward. Ensuring that we can have some movement and on identified opportunities where there's not already an organization that is taking action there, and ongoing support to keep the conversation at the forefront. what we're asking from local communities is we are seeking resolutions to endorse this Alberni Clayoquot Working Together to Reduce Poverty Protocol Agreement that was brought forward through a meeting with the MLA and MP. The goals of this is to increase leadership involvement and commitment, to further engage communities in the planning and in the action planning around this, and then to also ensure that the process is reflective of the region. That's all from me. Do you have any questions?
Marcy, thank you very much for your presentation. So you're asking that council endorse the Working Together to Reduce Poverty Protocol?
Yes.
I'm just out of curiosity, I actually don't see that any councillor or member of council is listed on that workshop. So maybe perhaps it happened at a time when nobody was able to make that meeting.
At the May 30th workshop?
I'm just looking at the workshop attendance.
Yes, not at the workshop, at the presentation that we did that you were in attendance in February.
Yeah.
With MLA and MP.
Right.
Yeah.
I was there, but it's just this other workshop that we weren't there. Okay. Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, I guess it's quite easy to pass and support a protocol. What do you expect to get if we all endorse this protocol? Like, how are we? What is your steps to get rid of poverty? And to me, the only way to be, in my mind at least, people have to quit being poor, and a good way to do that is to have some financial assets that they don't now have. So what's the protocol going to do? I got no problem endorsing it, but what are we going to get for it?
Okay. So the protocol itself, like I said, we're putting this through on two different levels. One is the political, so looking at the ways that the local municipalities, our provincial and our federal government can help to support and resource the actions that are coming out of the planning that we're doing with the communities and the organizations. So the community and organizations, we're working with them around this poverty reduction framework, theory of change, that's identified things outside of just economic development. Because in the past, we've done a lot of, stimulating the economy and working around just economic development, saying that that's what's going to help with poverty. But research shows that things like housing, food security, access to health services have a greater impact on the reduction of poverty than does just economic stimulation in communities. So that's what we're addressing with this protocol, with the theory of change. And what we're asking local leaders to do is engage us in these four very kind of basic and kind of high-level components of the protocol, assisting to resource and support that work.
Thank you. Councillor Sauvé?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm prepared to make a motion to direct staff to prepare a letter of endorsement to reduce poverty protocol agreement as stated. And I'll need a second.
Okay.
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion, council? Then on the motion, all those in favor?
In favor?
Carried.
Thank you.
Marcy, thank you very much. Council, that's brings the end of our delegations. Then we're working on now unfinished business. Don't believe there is any unfinished business, so then we get into staff reports. The first one is on accounts. And Councillor Washington, would you like to make that motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the certification of the Director of Finance dated June 12, 2017 be received, and checks numbered 139039 to 139159 inclusive, payments of account totaling $2,177,718.96 be approved.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
In
Carried.
favor.
Thank you. And again, from Director of Finance from the Audit Committee, we have some minutes. So again, Councillor Washington, are you prepared to make that motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the minutes of the May 23rd, 2017 Audit Committee meeting, the responses to the questions arising from that meeting dated May 29, 2017, the quarterly analysis of mayor and council travel and convention expenses ending March 31, 2017, the financial statements ending March 31st, 2017, and the vendor check registry report ending May 15th, 2017 be received.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion? All in favor?
In
Carried.
favor.
Thank you. Oops. Then council, that brings us from the CAO, is annual exempt staff salary and council remuneration increases for 2017. CAO,
Mr. Mayor,
you have the floor.
thank you. We're just going to put my report up on the screen. So council will be aware that it is a city policy and city bylaw dictate that on an annual basis, I write a report to you making recommendations on increases for exempt employee salaries and increases for mayor and council remuneration. And exempt employees are those employees who, as a matter of their employment, are not part of one of the unions. So they're managers, if you like. So if we look at the discussion portion of that report, just as some background, effective January 1st of 2017, the city's QP member employees received a 2% wage increase, and the city's IAFF, International Association of Firefighter, member employees received a 2.5% salary increase. And also of interest is that the 2016 BC Consumer Price Index, CPI, increased by 1.87%. So in order to prepare for this report, we canvassed some comparator communities, and you can see them on the screen. And the second column over shows what the exempt employee salary increase policy dictates, and the next column what that amount was in 2017. And moving further to the right, the council increased bylaw provisions in those communities and what the percentage increase was in 2017. And you can see that fairly consistently in these comparator communities, mayor and council remuneration increased 1.87% effective January 1st, with the exception of Campbell River. And a little less clear on the exempt salary. Some are tied to QP. They get the same increases as QP. Some are tied to CPI, and Campbell River had a consultant report, so they landed on 1.75 for this year. If council was to provide, so I should tell you that the current budget has a 1% increase included for both council remunerations and exempt employee salaries. And so that 1% is already included in the budget. Should council want to add the 0.87% to be in concert with the majority of these communities, that would be a further amount of $26,800 for council and exempt. And those funds are available in the budget. We've realized some lower than expected costs on employee benefits, and so we can more than accommodate that increase if council so wishes. And my recommendation to council is that both exempt employee salaries and council remuneration increase by 1.87% effective January 1st.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions? Councillor Sobe, would be interested in making that
Yes,
motion?
Mr. Mayor, that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer dated May 24, 2017 be received in council for the City of Port Alberni, authorize an increase to exempt employee salaries and council remuneration of 1.87% effective January 1st, thus providing increases consistent with comparator municipalities.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Once again, Councillor Minion, any questions?
No.
Thank you. Councillor Alemany?
Just a comment, because I feel like I need to make a comment. I always feel very uncomfortable when we're voting for our own salaries, so increase or decrease. I think it's inappropriate for a council to do that, but it is the system that we're in. I think the system should change.
Thank you. Councillor Washington?
Thank you. Just for the people at home, these salaries that these people get, there's no such thing as overtime for being here tonight. There's no such thing as answering an email on Sunday night. They get paid to do that. Their salary is based, and they're on call for the city 24/7, and I know that from experience by sending an email hoping to get some response on Monday, and it gets responded to on the weekend. So they're there for us when we need them, sir.
Yeah. On the Councillor McClement?
Yeah, I guess 0.87 isn't much. It don't sound like much. I guess the only problem that I have is we always keep going on percentages. And when you go up by percentages, it just multiplies instead of an amount that we feel is fair. I know that we voted to do a percentage. I've never much liked them, although sometimes it's good to mix and match so you don't get too big a span, but you do get a much larger span for the lower income people to the higher every time you put a percentage. And in response to Councillor Alberni, I guess where the buck stops, either we vote for it or nobody else can do it, unless you have somebody out there that can sneak a raise in or somewhere. I don't think that's going to happen. So we are responsible to the public, and that's what we got to do.
And thank you, Councillor McClement. Just to underscore, this has no impact on our budget that we've already passed. So on the motion then, all those in favor?
In favor.
Thank you. Carried. Thank you, CAO. City Clerk, Community Futures Development Corporation. CAO, are you able to comment on this? I think I'm on the right item.
Mr. Mayor, Community Futures Development Corp. This is a lease agreement. Community Futures owns their own building, but it's occupied on city lands. It's a modular building. And this is a renewal of a lease that has existed for some time. You'll notice that the rent is not, it's not market value, and council has directed that we receive market value, or we strive to receive market values for city-owned lands and facilities. In this case, Community Futures brings us far greater value in terms of the programs that they've offered in this community, not the least of which was the facade program that they ran last year and again this year, and leveraged the funds that we brought by more than 100%. So they asked that we keep the lease the same as it was, very low, and to enable them to direct all of their money to development, financial development, economic development of the community. And so this lease does that, and it's up to council whether that's the direction you want to go.
You're asking me to comment. Certainly from my perspective, it's a really good return for our minimal investment in terms of their lease cost. Any question, council? Councillor McClement, you want to make that motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, move that the Council of the City of Port Alberni authorize the mayor and clerk to enter a lease with Community Futures Development Corporation of Alberni Clackwood for 4757 Tibu Avenue for a 5-year term commencing July the 1st, 2017, at the current monthly rent of $30 plus taxes.
Is there a seconder? Thank you.
And that taxes, is that GST or is that?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I thought maybe they're paying property taxes too.
All those in favor? Councillor Minions? Carried. And from the city clerk, young professionals of the Alberni Valley, we have, I believe it's 4 lots that we nominally rent for the community garden on 4th Avenue, just off of Napier. A motion to renew that annual rent. Councillor Alemany, are you prepared to make that motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that council for the City of Port Alberni authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into a lease with the young professionals of the Alberni Valley for a community garden at 3483 and 3491 4th Avenue for a 3-year term commencing June 1st, 2017 at the current annual rent of $1.
Seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, I'm curious to know how successful it's been. I know we had one report maybe last year, the year before. I'd just like to know how it's accepted. I sometimes drive by and it looks fairly good, but I don't know what they're planning on having there. So I'd like to know how it's coming. The community garden's a good idea, and who's using it.
I know anecdotally that they had a really good crop last year, and there was a major work weekend before last to get it all cleaned up in preparation for planting. So it's a space that's certainly well used for us, and it's a great area of the community. What I don't know, though, and maybe the CAO can answer, what happens to the produce that does come from there? Is it the young professionals themselves that use it, or is it just somehow distributed to the community, or is it a combination?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have the answer to that, but Councillor Minions might be able to enlighten us.
Councillor Minions, do you know the answer to that question?
Yeah, some people rent individual plots. So, and then others, there's some fruit and vegetable in there that's available for anybody to take. And they, at one point, they were going to plant some stuff along the outside so that people were able to, who didn't have a key, were able to go in and get stuff as well. So the bulk of it, I believe, is rented to individual people, and those are their plots, but there is some available for people to come and take.
Okay, thank you very much. On the motion, I believe we've had the motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
In favor.
Carried. And from the Director of Finance, we have a statement of financial information for the year ended December 31st, 2016. Council, that's on page 110, and this is the often known as the SOFI report. So you can see how we get compensated as council, as well as all employees that earn $70,000 a year or more. Any questions, Council? Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, I noticed that Councillor McClellan only gets $19.08 taxable benefits, and I think that's an error, so just maybe it'll have to be corrected.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I was wondering about the difference of some get taxable benefits and others of various amounts.
Well, it depends on the benefits that we're using. If we get medical, which a counselor can get, or they can pay for it for their spouse,
Okay.
or there's dental and whatever. I know in my case, I get some and not all of it, but I'm pretty sure $19 is probably under.
Okay. Thank you. Maybe the CAO can just double check on that.
It's not a big deal.
No. Your base salary and remuneration is the same as everybody else's, so. Yeah, okay, thank you. And
In your mind, it could.
Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, another comment for the people at home. On page 134, we've got a line item for Raymond Jones Limited for $16 million, and I think I know what it is, but I would rather hear it from either the CAO or the director exactly what we're doing with $16 million on that line item, please.
The $16 million is a payment to Raymond James. They're our investment broker.
Okay, and since you're there, just even though I know the answer to this, I think it'd be good for people at home to hear. There are a number of quite large taxable benefits and other, particularly to firemen. Where does that come from?
We have the base salary and then taxable benefits, and other is overtime. It's a retro taxable benefits, which are MSP, life insurance, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Council? All right, then, Councillor Paulson, do you want to move the motion?
I'd like to move that the report from the Director of Finance dated June the 5th, 2017 be received, and Council for the City of Port Alberni approve the statements and schedules included in the Statement of Financial Information produced under the Financial Information Act for the year 2016.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. And from the Director of Development Services from the West Coast Native Healthcare Society, we have a report, and there is a request there, Council asking us to waive some fees. Perhaps Mr. Smith could come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Rainbow Gardens through the West Coast Native Healthcare Society is finalizing their plans for our 20-unit affordable housing project for seniors and 10 units of complex care. They have sent a letter to the city asking for City Council to waive or reduce some city-related fees. So based on the two projects, the 20 units and the 10 units, we've been able to look at what the fees might be for council's information. So based on the building permit fee, and that will change depending on the final architectural plans and or what have you, for the 20 units would be about $7,950, so almost $8,000. And the building permit fee for the 10 units would be about $3,570. Council can waive these building permit fees if they wish by resolution. This would be a loss of revenue, but there wouldn't be like a cost coming to the city. In addition, there will be some costs for sewer and water connections for the project. There's a preliminary estimate that has been done for both projects in the range of about $20,000. In addition to this, the city is looking at potentially, there's 3 dead-end water lines in the area that the city would like to loop through the Rainbow Gardens property. They have agreed to allow those right-of-ways through this property. If the city were to undertake this work at the same time as the connections, that cost should come down a little bit. Again, council can waive these city service connection fees. It should be noted that if the city does waive those fees, there is still going to be an actual cost to provide those connection services. So that would certainly have an impact on our public works operations budget. The second, or the last and the largest cost is the city's development cost charges. So based on the 20 units of seniors housing, the development cost charge would be about a little over $95,000 and about a little over $21,000 for the 10 units of complex care. For most projects, council cannot waive or reduce development cost charges. There is a section in the Local Government Act that does allow council to waive or reduce DCC charges for certain eligible developments. These projects would likely fall within one of those potential categories. Council can only do that in accordance with a bylaw that council would adopt. So Rainbow Gardens, this project would likely qualify under a couple of those categories. If council wants to consider waiving or reduce the fees, it'd be recommended that staff be directed to prepare a development cost reduction bylaw for council to consider. We would recommend that we just focus on those first 2 categories and we don't get into some of the other categories that we don't have anything in the community being looked at. the bylaw would need to clearly define what constitutes an eligible development, what the rate of reduction would be, requirements and conditions that would have to be met in order to waive or have a reduction of that fee. Again, if council did adopt such a bylaw, it would apply to all future projects that qualified under what that bylaw would mean. As council may recall, development cost charges are fees that the city charges on new development, and that helps us offset infrastructure costs that we need to accommodate future growth. So, and it helps lower the cost for general taxpayers. So there's a lot in this report. I'd be pleased to answer any questions, and then direction from council on any or all of what is being requested.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Councillor Sobe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a similar request, which we did not waive from the Friendship Center. Am I right?
You did. The difference there is the Friendship Center would not have qualified under the legislation. So you weren't able to adopt a bylaw to waive or reduce those development cost charges. You would have been forced to pay the city itself out of general revenue.
Okay.
So there is a small difference.
Okay, and if I'm correct, there's a portion of the development at the Rainbow Gardens that is for profit. Am I right? So it's completely all nonprofit?
Well,
I believe so,
That's
yes.
what the representative is saying. If council wanted to draft a bylaw, we would need to clearly define what is going to be eligible. So, we'd have to come up with something like that for council to consider, and you would have to decide whether that's appropriate for what the city wants to do or not.
Okay, Councillor Alemany, and then Councillor Minions. I bet you have a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's difficult because you want to support our nonprofits that are providing seniors care, but the difficulty is that taxpayers are burdened with very significant costs as far as infrastructure. So those development costs are key to try to deal with those infrastructure costs. So I'm leaning towards saying that we should keep the development costs as they are and fund it through that way. I think it's only fair, especially if down the road we have other seniors developments that that's been a focus in our discussions for a long time. I wouldn't want to set that kind of a precedent where we would potentially lose out on that potential funding. So.
Thank you. Councillor Minions, did you have a comment?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I think this is definitely a really tough one. I think we can all agree that this is a huge need in our community, and I'm sure we all want to support it in some way. My question to the Director of Development Services, the rate reduction bylaw that we would need to create, is that something that's standard in other communities? Like, do other communities, I know we have the provision within the community charter, but or local government act, but do other communities do that? Is it common for a development of this type to have their fees waived?
I think communities do it a variety of different ways. I haven't done a lot of research. Rainbow Gardens pointed out an example of Campbell River. I made a call to Campbell River to see how they do it, and they actually so they don't have a fee or a bylaw that waives their fee. What they do is they create a fund. And so within their budget, they create a fund where if a project that they feel is something they wish to support, they have a pool of money to then pay their DCC fees. The City of Nanaimo, within their development cost charge bylaw, specifically excluded their downtown core from development cost charges. So municipalities, but other municipalities, there are a few that do have a fee reduction bylaw. I haven't done extensive research on it because I didn't know what direction council might want to go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I guess I would very much like to find some way for us to support this development. I think that if we compare this development to what we've done for, you know, other community, similar types of homes like Abbeyfield, and, you know, we gifted them land, whereas we sold land to Rainbow Gardens, and we paid, I think, $250,000 for Abbeyfield's roof. You know, we've kind of done everything at market value for Rainbow Gardens. I don't know what the right way to support it is. I love the concept of having a fund where we would then be able to pull from that fund to support developments like this. And then we would be actually doing that within a budget that we had set out. I'd love to explore that for the future, but obviously that doesn't help us now. I guess my last question would be, do we need to decide this right now for Rainbow Gardens, or could we discuss the building permit fee and sewer and water connections, or, you know, the other parts, and then come back to this later after we maybe do more research about other communities?
Councillor Minions, I think we could pass a motion that would direct staff to prepare a rate reduction bylaw, and then we could make a decision once that's ready on where we want to go with this. I agree with you that this is a project that is of huge importance to the community, and it's one that is well worth supporting as a council. I'd like to see us support it somehow, and even if it means the equivalent of 50% reduction, as is the case in Nanaimo, I think it would only be fair and just for us to do that. Councillor Paulson?
Just with regards to the bylaw, could the bylaw be, so you have some flexibility depending on the individual project, could it be on a sliding fee, say, to put abstract wording into it, could provide exemption up to 50%. So you'd be 10%, 20%, 30%, depending on the project. And I too, like the mayor, I think this is a great project and we need to support it. I'm just trying to figure out how to get into the bylaw wording. And I'm just wondering if there could be a sliding fee.
So I haven't done a whole lot of research on what other community bylaws have looked like. It's a bylaw though, so it's going to have to be relatively clear. Not to say that it couldn't be a sliding scale, but there'd have to be some very clear
Parameters.
it hits 50% here, it hits 70%, here are the thresholds that this community wants to do. It cannot be open for interpretation very well. So we'd have to word it so that it'd be very clear for you and staff and any development, here's what it's going to be.
Councillor Sylvie?
Yeah, my main concern that I had, thank you for answering those questions, by the way, it kind of bends towards Councillor Alberni, what he stated. What precedent are we going to be setting for other, in which we have many nonprofit organizations in this community, and we have many of them that would like to, expand. I could tell you right now, Continuing Care Society is looking to expand, and it's just what kind of precedent we're going to be setting. So I agree, we should get a report, but I think we should tread carefully on here how we handle the taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think either we're going to support seniors housing or we don't. I think it's a great idea. I think we need to support this somehow, and I'm sure probably with any exemptions that we would come up with, there'd be a trickle down to the future residents or potential residents to make the housing more affordable because we gave them a break in the beginning.
So, Councillor Washington, do you want to make that motion to direct staff to prepare a rate reduction bylaw for our consideration?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the report from the Director of Development Services dated June 6, 2017 be received, and that council directs staff to draft a report to show us the different just to come up with the report so that we can review this more in detail.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Would that motion address what you're suggesting, or do you want more specifics as a rate reduction bylaw?
Okay, well, here's what, if council agrees with my interpretation, I would do a report that would look at some comparable municipalities and also have a rough draft of a rate reduction bylaw on that report for council's consideration. Is that what the intent would be from?
I think that would be the intent, but.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's exactly what I was trying to say, sir.
Okay.
And I would like to see a variation of, in the past years, what we had for development, as into cost and the savings. And I'm just wondering how big of an impact such a bylaw will affect our future projects that's in the community. I'm all for helping the seniors and so forth, but you're going to have a lot more nonprofit associations coming after. And if anybody's more supportive than the seniors, it's me. But when it comes to more projects coming out, it could be the youth center, it could be a lot of things coming up that we just got to be careful. So I'm looking forward to the report. Thank you.
Okay, let's vote. Councillor McClellan?
Yeah, I think that in the report, I'd like to see what kind of precedent we're setting, but I'm leaning towards what Councillor Minion says. I like the idea. We have a budget, and if we're going to help a housing project, we're going to sign the protocol to help fight poverty. I presume housing is definitely one of those pillars. So maybe we should look and prepare for the next budget, something like that. It's not going to get big out right away. Our town isn't as big as Nanaimo, but or wherever they're doing it. But we could. It's just something to look at. I really don't like setting a precedent saying no development cost charges. So I'll see what we can come back with.
And as far as the setting of the precedent, what it would be is if we do that, we would, so the bylaw would clearly define or would propose, here's what an eligible development will be. Yeah. And you're right, future developments that fall under that category would be eligible for a waiver or reduction depending on what the bylaw specifies. So it's true.
Councillor McClellan, just a point of interest, Qualicum, which is considerably smaller than we are, does in fact have a similar fund. On the motion then, all those in favor?
In favor.
Carried.
Does council want to give any direction on the building permit and connection charges?
Wouldn't that be coming out of your report, what the options are?
Well, that's a lot simpler. Yeah. Council can, by resolution, waive the building permit fee and the service connection fees. The building permit fee is a simple loss of revenue. The the connection fees is a loss of revenue, but it's a cost also to our public works operations budget because they're still going to have to pay to do that. Those are not required to be done by bylaw. Council can give direction by resolution if you wish for those two items.
I don't get, if were me making the decision on my own, I'd say yes. But I don't know that all of council's had that opportunity to really think through that one at this point.
Okay. And council can wait until the other report comes back if you wish.
I think that's the intent of council, is we'll wait for your report and then make our decision once we see that.
Okay.
Councillor Minions, would you agree with that?
Yes, thanks, I agree.
Okay. Does that help muddy the waters for you anymore?
Certainly.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith. But you almost got away, didn't quite. From Mr. Smith, we have a strata conversion request, Director we have a report dated June 7th regarding an application to convert a rental duplex building on Swallow Drive to a building strata. And I believe we have some pictures of that. So, Mr. Smith, tell me how this came about.
So this
Please.
is very recent construction. This duplex was built in 2015, 2016. And the owner has applied for a stratification. And the key thing here, it has been occupied. So it was occupied in 2016. If the owner had done a building strata prior to it being occupied, there's no local government approval required. But because it has been occupied, he must apply and get council's approval to do a strata conversion from a rental to a strata building. So he has to go through this process. That's what he's applied for. Council's required to, the legislation requires the council to consider a number of items. One, they must not approve the strata unless it meets the city's bylaws and substantially complies with the BC Building Code. I can tell you that it is zoned duplex. It does meet our bylaws, and because it is so recent, it's almost brand new. It substantially complies with the BC Building Code. Council must also consider the priority of rental over privately owned, the proposal to relocate occupants, the life expectancy of the building, maintenance issues, or any other matters that council feels it wishes to consider. There's information on CMHC, Canadian Mortgage and Housing, does some general vacancy rates. This is the apartment vacancy rate. We don't have vacancy rates for duplex units, but it gives you a bit of an idea of where we have been. We're about double the provincial average, but certainly lower over the last couple of years than previous years. That being said, this is a single duplex. One half of the duplex is occupied by the owner of the building, and the current tenants of the other half of the duplex have already found alternative accommodation. So this is not really having a great impact on the rental. Again, because it's practically a new building, there's no life cycle or maintenance serious issues to consider. So the planning department does support the strata conversion of this project, and I'd be pleased to answer questions.
Okay, any questions, Council? Then Councillor Alberni.
Just out of curiosity, I don't think I saw it in the report. How many of these types of strata duplex do we have?
They've been pretty common over the last number of years. A number of builders have built duplexes, which they've done. They've stratified each units. Some of them have kept sole ownership and have rented them out. Others have sold them as private setting. It's been something that's been pretty popular over the last one. Most of the time, they're done prior to occupation, and therefore council doesn't see them. The last time we saw a strata conversion was for a much larger project, and it was for an apartment building on 11th Avenue, just north of Redford, that went through. And of course, that was a much more involved process. Same process, but because of the size of the building, slightly older, much more had to be considered. An architect's report was required to prove it out. So this one's quite a bit simpler given the size and how new it is.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Alberni, do you want to make that motion?
Yes, that the report from the Director of Development Services dated June 7th, 2017 be received, and Council for the City of Port Alberni approve the conversion on 5526 Swallow Drive to a building strata, and the Mayor and City Clerk be authorized to execute the required strata plan with approval valid no more than 2 years from the date of adoption of this resolution.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Discussion, Councillor McClement?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the house and it looks really nice, this duplex, but if you sell half of the place to somebody else, you can't even evict them. I mean, if you don't happen to like them when they get in. So I'm not sure why people want strata unless he's going to sell both of them. Let two other people worry about it. I don't know.
All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. And Council, we have our next item, which is from the Deputy City Clerk Communications Coordinator, our annual report. You've all had an opportunity to have a look at it. I must say to Mr. Martins, this is a huge amount of work, and he should be definitely congratulated for all of his efforts in producing this annual report. City Clerk, do we have any extra clarification on any of it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the annual report. It's required by legislation to be made available to the public prior to the end of June in each year, and be available for 2 weeks before Council holds its annual meeting to further consider it. So at this point, it's just for Council to receive, and then we will advertise it, make it available. It will be on our website. The annual meeting will be held on June 26th as part of the next regular meeting of Council. And at that point, our Deputy Clerk will present the report. There'll be input from both Council and the public received at that time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Paulson, do you want to move receipt of that report?
That the 2016 annual report be received, made available for public inspection immediately, and that public questions, comments, and formal approval be considered at the annual meeting to be held on June 26, 2017, as part of the regular meeting of council.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried.
In favor.
Thank you. And from the Facilities Operations Supervisor, Curling Club Ice Plant Compressor, request for funding. Mr. Zenko's here, Council. We have a report dated June 5th regarding a request we heard earlier from the AV Curling Club for Council to commit $40,000 funding to support their grant application that would result in a $150,000 upgrade of the curling rink's aging ice plant. And that would be $40,000 for the 2018 budget, I believe.
Yeah, that's correct. The capital grant that they're applying to is open from August 1st until September 30th. And they won't even hear until sometime in January or February whether they got that grant. So they're looking for funds to be available in 2018 so that they can affect the modifications in the down.
What's the deadline for their grant application? Do you know? Is it like, do they have to get the grant application in before
It would have to be in
summer?
by the end of September.
End of September, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Council questions? And
I can give you just a little bit of background on that,
Sure.
that issue. That the ice plant that the Curling Club is using right now is using a type of refrigerant that's no longer produced. And as a result, they're just basically depleting reserves and whatever reclaimed gas they can use. As a result, that gas that is required in that plant is very expensive. I'm estimating that they use probably over 100 pounds of that gas, and it's last I heard it's going for about $45 a pound. So in the event that they actually had a break in the line, that gas dissipates very quickly. And in addition to the repair charges, then they have to kind of buck up for another $4,500 in just replacing gas alone. So it's getting to be very expensive to maintain that plant. There are options. They can continue to use some of the equipment with a new, more compliant gas, but that would require modifications. Just in the area of replacing that whole plant with something new, you're looking at close to $350,000. So they're not quite prepared to put out that kind of money, but they do have some options to upgrade what they have to continue to operate for hopefully several more years.
okay, thank you. Any other questions, Council? Councillor McClellan, do you want to move that motion?
Hey, Mr. Mayor, I move the report from the Facilities Operations Supervisor dated June 5th, 2017 be received. Council City of Port Alberni approve the request for a funding commitment of $40,000 Alberni Valley Curling Club in order to support the grant funding applications of community gaming for funds to upgrade the ice plant.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
And I take it if they don't get the grant, then the $40,000 isn't any help?
That's correct.
That's correct, yeah.
Councillor Paulson?
Just a quick comment, just once again for publics. The curling club certainly has their own client or their own membership, but we have to keep in mind that our own recreation department runs programs in there from time to time, and also the school district as well. So it's a pretty valuable asset to the community. I'd hate to be without it.
Okay, on the motion, all those in favor?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councillor Minions.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, I see the value of this facility for sure, but I don't know, I have a problem with us consistently going outside of what our lease agreements say we're responsible for funding. You know, we lease this place for $1 a year. I think I read that they don't pay taxes either, and I think that those are worthwhile investments for us as a community. But I mean, we saw it on our Abbeyfield decision to pay over $200,000 for a new roof on that facility when our lease agreement clearly said it wasn't our responsibility. I think if we keep paying for things like this, then the organizations that we make these agreements for are going to assume we'll pay for them regardless of what our agreements say. Especially with how tight we've made our budget, I would love to support this, but I just don't think we should be going outside of what our lease agreements and our actual requirements are.
I understand what you're saying. Just to comment in response to that is that without our $40,000 funding support, they can't go for the $150,000 grant application. CAO, would that be correct?
Mr. Mayor, that's correct. If they don't get the money from us or somebody else, they're not eligible for that grant at this time. There may be grants in the future they could apply for. I hear what Councillor Millions is saying. This is not our cost, it's their cost. What is different about this request is that the curling club has done much of what we would ask that they do. They have saved, and they have a long-term plan, and they're asking us for a portion of the money, not all of it. And this is not an emergency. They haven't come to us and said, it's broken, please fix it with $100 They've managed that facility in a way that we would hope that all of our leaseholders would do. And so I think that's the recommendation of council, is that the city recognize that these are responsible leaseholders and support that.
And they have been doing all the other maintenance in their portion of the building, am I correct?
That's correct.
All right, so you have great sentiments, Councillor Minions, but I don't know that I personally can completely endorse them or support them.
I mean, I agree with what CAO just said, but I think it's not fully accurate because what we've asked them to do is to budget so that they can afford everything other than the maintenance. So yeah, I mean, I agree. They've done better than some other facilities have, but they're not at the point still that we asked them to get to. So that's my point, and I'm just very concerned with this being the second request we've had like this, just in our council term, how many more there will be.
Okay, Councillor Soe?
Yeah, I just want to mention that, you know, the grant application, they made the efforts of getting through the grant application, but we have to keep in mind now how this is going to affect our taxpayers. We're having city recreational events going through that establishment, and a lot of people count on that building. I convey what Councillor Paulson said, and I agree with him. We have many community events attending there. And the Curling Club Association is much bigger than what everybody thinks here. So I've attended a few. I'm not a curler myself, but the building is very well utilized. So I think it's a proper investment for our community.
Okay, on the motion, all those in favor? Opposed?
In favor.
Carried.
And on behalf of the Alberni Curling Club, thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
For the record, I'm Randy Taylor. I'm the president of the Curling Club.
Okay, thanks, Randy.
Thank you very much.
You can continue to throw rocks.
We'll keep trying.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, and council, next item from the Director of Development Services, Development Permit 17-02 for 4065 McBride Street, an item we've dealt with before. We have a report dated June 8th, 2017 from the Director of Development Services regarding consideration of an application for the development permit to facilitate developing the property on McBride Street. Any questions, council? Seeing none, then Councillor Alemany, would you like to make that motion?
That council for the city of Port Alberni approve development permit number 1702 and that the city clerk be authorized to sign the permit.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Favor.
Carried. And council, we have a status report. Any questions, council, on the status report? Seeing none, Councillor Sauvé, do you want to move receipt of that report then, please?
That the current status report be received, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor?
In favor.
Carried, thank you. And managers' monthly reports, planning and building department. Council, anything you wish to extract from this report? Or Mr. Smith, is there anything you wish to highlight for council? You almost got to sit down.
I'd be very pleased to answer any questions council might have.
I do have one question. When it says, when you're comparing year-to-date 2016 to 2017, is that January to the end of May for each year, or is 2016, is that January to the end of the year?
January to the end of May. So these are.
So it's the same time frame?
Same time frame.
Okay, thank you. I just wasn't 100% sure. I thought maybe we were comparing half a year to a full year.
No. Same time frame for each.
Okay, Councillor Alemany?
This might be a dumb question, I'm not sure. The secondary suites, are these new, or are they ones that are out in the community that are?
These are
coming in?
primarily new.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have we had many or at all that have come in from the community?
We haven't had too many existing units take us up on the authorization process. So most of these are new builds.
Okay, then Councillor Alemany, do you want to move that motion then, please?
That the monthly report from the Director of Development Services providing information about current departmental operations be received.
Now, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
And in council, this brings us to item G, bylaws. Our first one is for the May 23rd and 29th public hearings. Councillor Paulson, do you want to move receipt of those?
Sure.
There are actually two motions, sir.
That the report of the public hearing held May 23rd, 2017, regarding bylaw numbers 4937, 4465, and 4453 9th Avenue, and 4936, 3994 Anderson Avenue be received.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
In favor.
That the report of the public hearing held May 29th, 2017, regarding bylaw numbers 4935 and 4934, which apply to 2881 and 2911 Bird Street, be received.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. And then, council, we're now looking at considering the official community plan amendment number 24, Bird Street. Councillor Paulson, do you want to carry on with that?
I certainly could. That official community plan amendment number 24 applied to 2281 and 2911 Bird Street, McClellan and Riles, bylaw number 4934, be read a third time.
Seconder?
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion, council? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And
That
Councilor
zoning
Paulson.
map amendment number 21 applied to 2881 and 2911 Bird Street, McClellan and Riles, bylaw number 4935, be read a third time.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
all those in favor?
In favor.
Carried. And item number 2, on 3994 Anderson Avenue, bylaw 4936. Councillor Minions, you declared conflict, so you just presuming you wouldn't be able to vote on this one.
Yes, thank you. I'll have a conflict, so I will mute myself.
Okay. Councillor Alberni, would you like to make those motions, please?
That the report dated June 6, 2017 from the Director of Development Services be received.
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried.
That zoning bylaw amendment number 22, 3994 Anderson Avenue, Minions, bylaw number 4936, be now finally adopted, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the corporate seal, and numbered 4936.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried. And then Councillor Sobe, we have Council Procedures Bylaw 2013 Amendment number 3 to Bylaw number 4938.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Council Procedures Bylaw 2013 Amendment number 3, Bylaw number 4938 be now finally adopted, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the corporate seal numbered 4938.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Carried. Okay, and Council, next item, the 5-year financial plan 2017 to 2021. This is refining the numbers and precisions concerning our grant applications. So we amended it at the third reading and giving Council more accurate costs. So we're incorporating revised costs for asset management and capacity building. Councillor McClellan, do you want to move receipt of that report, and please?
I move that the report from the Director of Finance dated May 30th, 2017 be received.
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor?
In favor.
Carried.
And that the bylaw, 5-year financial plan 2017-2021, amendment number 1, bylaw number 4940 be amended and read a third time.
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor?
In favor.
Carried. And then Council, we have, for lack of a better term, a goat vegetation management bylaw, and we have incorporated this using the City of Parksville's bylaw as a model, as per Council direction. And Councillor Sobe, I'm wondering if you would like to make these motions. But I challenge you to do
What
it
is it, payback
straight,
night tonight or
straight
what?
face.
Anyways, that the goat vegetation management bylaw number 4941 be now introduced for the first time.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All in
Please note
favor?
Councillor Paulson.
Oh, sorry, Councillor McClellan.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank I can call him city planner, he's probably got another name now, for getting this out so quickly, and it's a good idea. Someone else got a good thing, we can copy it, it's good.
Thank you. All in favor?
In favor.
Carried.
That goat vegetation management bylaw number 4941 be read for the second time.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried.
In favor.
That goat vegetation management bylaw number 4941 be read a third time.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor?
I can't wait to
Carried.
go to Ottawa and tell them my achievements tonight, so.
They will already know. They're
Yeah.
watching. And our Director of Development Services has been one busy guy. Zoning Amendment number 18, 4020 McBride Street, bylaw number 4925. Councillor Alemany, do you want to move those motions, please?
That the report dated June 7, 2017 from the Director of Development Services be received.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried.
That zoning amendment number 18, 4080 McBride Street, Lindsay, bylaw number 4925 be now finally adopted, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the corporate seal, and numbered 4925.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Council, for that. That was lots of zoning stuff tonight. Our next item is correspondence for action. The first item is from the Salvation Army. We have a letter dated June 6th advising of the grand opening across the street from us on June 17th and 18th, requesting permission to close a few parking spaces in order to assist with that. A motion to approve this. Councillor Alberni, do you want to move that?
That the letter dated June 6, 2017, advising of their grand opening on June 17th and 18th, 2017, and requesting permission to close 3 parking spaces directly adjacent to their thrift store entrance on 4th Avenue on June 17, 2017, be received and approved subject to notification of surrounding businesses and consultation with the manager for operations to ensure safety.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. And council, we have from the Valley Street Rods Car Club a request. And Councillor Paulson, do you want to move this motion that supports Thunder in the Valley?
That the email dated June 7th, 2017, from the Valley Street Rods Car Club requesting use of the Harbor Quay for the Thunder in the Valley Car Show event on Friday, August 11th, 2017, and closure to regular traffic to the Harbor Quay from 2 p.m. until 9 p.m. to accommodate the event, be received, and council concur with the request subject to notification of emergency services, consultation with all affected businesses to minimize potential conflict, and traffic concerns and provision of standard liability insurance.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Oops, Councillor Alberni?
Just a general question on Thunder in the Valley. Are they going to come by next meeting before the summer? It would be nice just to know what's going on, and for this year.
Would be a good way to advertise a little bit more.
Mr. Mayor,
CAO?
I'll invite them to come out as a delegation.
That would be great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Done a great job of brush clearing.
All those in favor of the motion? Carried.
Favor.
Thank you. And council, we have from the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce a letter dated June 8th requesting various street closures on July 1st, as well as Harbor Road and Ship Creek Road in order to accommodate the Triconic Challenge. And, Councillor Sauvé, do you want to make that motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that the letter dated June the 8th, 2017, requesting street closures on July 1st, 2017, on July 2nd, 2017, to accommodate the Triconic Challenge be received and the requested closures approved as outlined, subject to notification of emergency services, consultation with all affected businesses, including trucking companies, to minimize potential conflict and traffic concerns and provisions of standard liability insurance.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor?
In favor.
Carried. Thank you. And City Clerk, we have some informational correspondence. Could you review that for council, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, a few items this evening. An email from Gary Lajeunesse expressing concern regarding air quality in the valley. Alberni Valley Community Forest Legacy Committee provides their minutes of a meeting on May 16th. Union of British Columbia Municipalities has sent a letter providing the provincial response to the 2016 resolution put forward by Council and endorsed by the UBCM membership at last year's convention. Food Security and Climate Disruption Committee minutes of their April 6th and May 4th meetings. The CAO has provided a copy of his response to Roland Smith's questions, which were received by Council on May 23rd. Dr. Hasselback, the Medical Health Officer with Island Health, has sent a letter indicating that local health area profiles are now available online. There is a full copy available in Council's reading file. John Howard Elementary School Grade 3 class thanks the Mayor for his letter of April the 11th. Provides an invitation to attend their Applied Design Science Project Fair, which was held on Friday, June the 2nd. Canadian Mental Health Association advises of the services the Port Alberni branch provides and of the Ride Don't Hide campaign taking place on June 25th. Vancouver Island Regional Library attaches their latest edition of From the Board Table. Island Corridor Foundation, survey results from a survey conducted between April 7th and May 15th. Cycle Alberni provides a certificate of appreciation for council support of Bike to Work and School Week 2017. Aboriginal Sport, Recreation and Physical Activity Partners Council advises that 2 local athletes have earned a spot on Team BC to compete at the 2017 North American Indigenous Games in Toronto and requests any financial or in-kind assistance from the community. The Air Quality Council has sent minutes of their May 11th meeting. And lastly, from Dusty Miller, concern expressed regarding traffic on Beaver Creek Road and lack of traffic lights at Beaver Creek and Highway 4. And this letter has been referred to the Advisory Traffic Committee.
Okay, thank you. Anything council wishes to pull from any of that? Councillor Alamani?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The main one I wanted to address is the response from the province on the UBCM resolution. And for the public, this is the resolution that was to do with burning that we brought to AVICC. I note in the response they've outlined the new public policy that they've posted for comment as of April 2016. They didn't actually say that they were going to adopt that policy. So this is a policy that it's made a lot of the rounds, not just in this community, but in other communities that are having problems around smoke and burning in general. So if I may, I'd like to ask that council send a letter thanking the ministry for their response and encouraging them to adopt the policy that they have on the books. And if we could meet, if we already have a meeting set for the Minister of Environment at UBCN, then this is a topic that we could bring at that time as well.
Well, I'd sure support that. And so City Clerk, I would second Councillor Alamani's motion. You know, you live even further away from the recent smoke that we've had than I do, but I couldn't take the dog out for a walk at night without choking, and probably Councillor McClellan, who was even closer to it than I am, would feel it. Well, you don't walk at 1 in the morning with your dog, so that's the difference.
1 in the morning, so time to go to bed.
That's very much exactly the kind of burning that would no longer be allowed close to communities.
It's just got to be choking, and there's no way that it couldn't do anything other than have an economic impact on our malls. A number of people couldn't get there. And
it has a serious health impact on. I just remind the public that there's people out there that have chronic breathing issues. I presented in front of the Better Breathers group at the hospital, and they have serious issues, life-threatening issues, a lot of the time with air quality. So anything we can do would be great to help.
Okay, on the motion to do the letter, send the letter, all those in favor?
In favor.
I would suspect that's what triggered Mr. Lajeunesse' letter.
Carried. Okay. Anything else, Council? Councillor Paulson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Alamani. This has to do with the Island Corridor Foundation, and just in this report, I wonder if you could shed some light on the survey and support for rail service by area. And the only one that didn't have overwhelming support was Parksville Qualicum. Do you have any insight on as to why that is? No.
I think all I could say was that it's historically that's always been where the support has been most difficult to obtain. I'm not entirely sure why, but it has been that way since I've been involved with the ICF. But I think it's worth noting that every other region strongly supports the railway. Yeah, and the Parksville Qualicum Beach is a subset of the regional district of Nanaimo, which the original district of Nanaimo actually also supports the railway. So it's just one of those things.
Okay. Then, council, we need a motion to receive and file this correspondence.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor, that informational correspondence item through 1 to 14 be received.
Second,
All those in favor?
In favor.
Carried, thank you. There is no report from in camera, so that brings us to council reports. And the first one is mine. As council knows, I recently attended in Ottawa the annual Federation of Canadian Municipalities convention in Ottawa. And it was great, and I have to say that it was wonderful having Councillor Sauvé and Councillor Minions along. Very good at sharing the duties, as has been the case in each of the previous two conventions that I've attended. We covered a lot of territory and met with a lot of people in the brief time that we were there. I think for the most part we gave up on sleep, but that's just the way it is. Council, the convention, as always, had great information, and I will endeavor to get a report out to council on exactly what I did on each one of those meetings. But suffice to say that I had the opportunity, along with Councillor Minions and Councillor Sauvé, to have dinner in the parliamentary restaurant, and at courtesy of MP Gord Johns. The level of security in order to get in there was, to say the least, a little intimidating, but you know that you're very carefully checked in order to go in there. It was a great meal and a great location and well hosted. And in my absence, I also would like to thank Councillor Alberni, who attended the official opening of the Boomtown Cafe. So, Councillor Alberni, thank you very much. And I took the opportunity to go and on Saturday and test it out myself. Great food, great location. And also, Councillor Alberni, thank you for chairing the public hearing. 29th, I believe that it was. Got my start times kind of mixed up, but you did a great job. And Councillor Sauvé, thank you for on Saturday representing me and representing council at the cadet event at the Cherry Creek Community Hall. I'm sure we'll hear from you on that a little bit. And this afternoon, council, at lunchtime today, the CAO and myself met with the chief counselor and the new CAO for Sechot, and we had a regular meeting with them, and it was a good meeting, and definitely covered a lot of territory. And one last item, council. Yesterday, I attended at the Sikh Temple on 8th Avenue, and as always, it's great to go there, and they have some concerns about events that happened in Punjab in 1984, but they will be coming to council as a delegation, I believe, at our next council meeting, just to explain to us what their concerns are. So, council, that's my report. I move acceptance of that report.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And from the regional district, Councillor McLennan?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, at the last regional district meeting, there was a presentation from regarding the Banfield health situation, and they promising to do something about helping them out a bit more and getting some of the questions answered. There was also a presentation on invasive species, and it sounded really good, and they offered that if our regional district bought into the program, they would actually come to a place and guarantee for $300 that whatever it is that there is invasive and is gone, would stay gone. And so I had my hand up immediately and told him they could come and get my English ivy. And he says, we don't do that one. So I say $300, but I still got English ivy. Another thing that came out, we passed a bylaw for the landfill tipping. I think I mentioned at a previous report that that's going up, but we've already included that into our budget. And the concept is if anyone is bringing full trucks into town, then time to get to the landfill is going to cost closer to what they would have if they'd done it at home. So we don't need to shorten the life of our landfill. And the Cherry Creek Fire Department has asked the regional district to discuss with the city of Port Alberni automatic aid instead of just mutual aid for the fire department, something that the rest of the valley's had for quite some time, so that could be interesting. And with that, I make a motion to accept my report.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor?
In favor.
Carried. And from council reports, Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May 29th, we had our public hearing. June the 3rd, I represented you at the gyro installation at the Cherry Creek Golf Course.
Oh, thank you.
Our own Jake Coline was installed as president of the club for this year, so it was a good installation, a very friendly group of people, and a lot of familiar faces. So much so that they invited me on their Francis Barkley Run Sunday. And they have a little tradition out there which they can keep. But nice to get out there for a little 3-hour tour on the Francis Barkley. And for anybody who hasn't been out there for a while, I'd highly recommend just to go out on the Barkley, because we have a beautiful, beautiful, just down the canal and back again. It's a beautiful thing to see. So thanks to the gyro for taking me under your wing, and the hospitality was unbelievable. And I'd just like to put this out June 25th, Sunday around 1 p.m. Kiwanis is trying to put together the first work party at the Canal Waterfront Park. We'll be there ourselves from 1 o'clock on, doing a few things, getting some sand moved and some rocks moved, and hopefully getting the play box on the concrete pad. So come on down, give us a hand, and we'll even have the bus down there for hot dogs and drinks. So again, 25th, that's on a Sunday, 1 o'clock. The more people we have down there, the more hands makes less work. So hope you can join us. That's my report.
Do you want us to bring tools?
No, just your strong backs.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Alamani?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not too much to report. Like you said, I got to chair the public hearing on the 29th, which was fun and exciting and new. So that was good, and it was a great hearing. The cake cutting at the Boomtown Cafe also, it was a great event. It's worth noting it was actually more than just them. A lot of the businesses there, a lot of the owners came up for the cake cutting, and it was a really good event just to celebrate all of the new things that are happening down there, all the new businesses that have opened up. There's a great little game shop in there that I hadn't actually seen before, that I had to tear my son away from. But yeah, there's lots of great stuff going on down there. So make sure everybody can get down there. And the only other item that I'll mention in my travels here is you would have noticed, I hope, over on 4th Avenue across from City Hall, there's a rainbow crosswalk that popped up last night. Just wanted to mention from some of the people who were involved in it, sort of why it's there. Today, June 12th, is the 1-year anniversary of the terrible shootings down in Orlando, Florida, at the Pulse nightclub, which was the worst mass shooting in United States history, and it was focused towards the LGBT community and specifically. So that was one reason, and supporting our lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender questioning community. It's really, really important. The response that I've heard from people online, especially from LGBT folks, range from, I can't believe that this finally happened in Port Alberni, and just people that are really, really overjoyed to see that kind of expression. So I do hope, I don't know what our direction will be in future, but I do hope that it's something that we can do permanently one day. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Minions, do you have a report?
Yes, thank you. I attended a chamber board meeting. Nothing specific to report from that one. The AV Emergency Planning Policy Group meeting, where we elected Director Cote and Councillor Sauve as chair and vice chair. So thank you, Councillor Sauve, for stepping up and representing us on that one. I attended a BC Housing meeting with the Alberni Valley Community Stakeholders Initiative. That was a really valuable meeting to be a part of, and so thanks to them for inviting me. It was nice to actually sit down with representatives from BC Housing and talk about, you know, what type of proposals they want us to be working on, how we can put our community in the best situation, in the best position to get not just, you know, something funded here and there, but to be ready when the calls come out. So that was very valuable, and it was nice to see a good cross section of the community at that meeting. And then, of course, I attended FCM, which was just an exhausting week, and I'm working on a report from that, but don't quite have it ready yet. And then, since being back from FCM, I was a part of the Manager of Police Support Services interviews, which was a good process as well, and hopefully we'll have some news on that soon. And that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Minions. Councillor Paulson?
On May 25th, I attended the Alberni Valley Learning Council meeting, same day in Emergency Planning Policy Group. Thank you, Councillor Sauve, for putting your best foot forward. May 26th, attended the Affordable Housing meeting as well in the morning. Friendship Center daycare official opening right after that, and made the trip out to the airport to see the Colson's in their Colson red and white colors, the 737 arrival at airport. What a great day. It was neat to see that aircraft come in that day. So May 29th was public hearing in council. May 30th was the Alberni Lower Energy Housing Society meeting. We're getting prepared to actually take out the hammers and nails and make some improvements to that building. So June 6th, attended another Canada 150 planning meeting. And June 7th to 9th, I was away in Vancouver for the British Columbia Hockey League AGM for 3 days, AGM and scheduling meeting. And last but not least, I picked up my big leaf maple syrup today that I ordered at the agricultural show. So the smaller bottles like these, I plan on using them as gifts for my relatives from Alberta, but it's great to see that new enterprise up and running. It took a while for them to get their bottles, but stoked to have it. That's my report.
Thank you. And Councillor Sauve?
I hope Councillor Paulson didn't forget about council also, so that's kind of important.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
Where to start, Mr. Mayor? Let's start with the 25th with the emergency planning policy meeting. As you're aware, I'm now the vice chair, being nicely nominated by yourself. And also on the 26th, attended the AVCSI meeting here at City Hall to discuss homelessness within our community. And there was a lot of discussions surrounding how our community could come together. And we discussed about the research that's been done locally and so forth, and tiny housing, and there was representative there from BC Housing, which was very interesting. So we got a lot of input, but there's still a lot of work to do, and we'll be working close with the BC Housing with certain initiatives. The BC Housing is also really encouraging people who have projects to come forward to BC Housing so they could work in partnership with them. Also, just to mention the FCM, very busy, but what I will be submitting to council is through the city clerk will be the actual resolutions that we voted on behalf of the city of Port Alberni. a lot of issue, first of all, dealing with administrational issues with criterias for people running for federal offices within the FCM. Also, federal leadership and cost sharing in infrastructure program. And as you're aware, we attended a lot of meetings, and there's a lot of grants out there that we're not aware of, and we need to take advantage of such thing. There's also, when we had a meet with the Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau, announcing about certain infrastructure programs, awards going out for specific projects within the community. So I'm sure we're going to be looking into that. Also, the third resolution having to do with intergovernmental dialogue on poverty reduction. Pretty much we're really up to par here in Port Alberni, which I was very impressed speaking and networking with other communities, especially on the East Coast, how advanced we are with our committees and how we're working towards resolutions and so forth. So I had a lot to offer to them. I didn't receive much, but I had a lot to offer to them. So the dialogue was good. Also, number fourth resolution, we dealt with free and fair trade with our softwood lumber issues, which we sent a very strong message. So I'll have this for the city clerk to have this scan, and it's going to be accepted for our next meeting. On June the 8th, attended the Seniors Advisory Committee. We had a presentation from Better at Home, and there's a certain project that we're going to be working together into championing all the resource in helping our seniors within the community, Meals on Wheels and so forth, and care for our seniors and discussing housing and so forth. So we're really looking forward. There was one issue I wanted to mention for the to the CEO. We received an informal correspondent dealing with the Bird Hill Estates, with seniors wanting to at least have a bus stop in front there. So I guess it stops at a short distance. I just didn't know who to address on that. So I didn't want to step on toes to dealing with the transport people. But if that could be mentioned, I would really appreciate it. Again, it's representing the Bird Hill Estates residents. And June the 10th, attended the 2308 Canadian Scottish Regiment, represented the mayor there, Royal Canadian Army Cadets Corps. It was their 68th annual ceremony review, and the review was done by our very own Inspector Hunter in Port Alberni, so that was great. A few little mentions I want to mention this weekend. There's an event that's very special to my heart. It's a fundraising for the Alberni Valley Hospice Society and the Ty Watson House. They're having their Butterfly Effect, which is a butterfly release. So it's going to be Saturday at 1 to 3 p.m. at the Harbor Key, so I invite everybody to attend. It's going to be, it was well attended at Canal Beach last year, so please attend and support in any way you can. I was nice to see discussing about the McLean Mill Historical Park, where this year it's been decided that the 5-acre shaker is going to be taking place there. So hopefully that'll turn out okay. That'll be on August 11th. I wanted to mention to the public, if they can, EJ Dunn has a contest going out where across the country we have the friendless rider community. Well, now it's dealing with parks, and EJ Dunn is really looking into getting some park equipment or recreation equipment on her property, and you needed to vote in. So if I could get the councillors to vote in and maybe the members of the public to assist us, we're doing really good in the competition, but we're still in about third place and so forth. So you could vote at www.bcaaplayhere.com and vote for Port Alberni and EJ Dunn, and I would really appreciate it. And that'll be my report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And Councillor McClement?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Briefly, I attended the Colson opening the airport, coming in with their planes, and it was, as Councillor Polson said, a very good thing to see for our valley, and I'm glad that we're finally at that point. I also was on the team looking for a manager for police services, and like Councillor Minion says, hopefully there'll be an announcement of that real soon. Attended the Alberni Valley Community Forest Board meeting, and they were looking at different types of direction and so on. And you'll notice some minutes in the information correspondence from the Legacy Committee, and the board will be coming to the city either in July or August, and I think July, to make their annual report and make some recommendations, which I think are going to be pretty interesting. And that's it for my reports, and on June 17th coming up, I'm out of here for a few weeks, going to do some black powder camping and pretend I'm old or something. So with that, I would move acceptance of all the reports from these wonderful councillors.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carry. Thank you. I don't believe there's any new business, council, but I do realize question period is an opportunity for public and press to ask questions of mayor and council. And when I see question period, I realize I forgot to ask a question of Mr. Smith. But it's okay. I will save it for next time. Motion to adjourn then, council.
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you, everybody.